My teenage daughter chose her cool stepmom over me for her sweet 16, said I was embarrassing. When the party ended in disaster, she finally realized who really loved her. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Not from Madison, my 16-year-old daughter, but from Mercy General Hospital. The nurse's voice was professional, but urgent. My daughter had been admitted with severe alcohol poisoning, and I needed to come immediately. As I drove through empty Chicago streets in my Honda Civic, still wearing my Target pajamas, I couldn't help but think about the conversation we'd had 3 weeks earlier. Madison had walked into our small apartment after her weekend at her father's Lincoln Park penthouse, designer shopping bags in hand, and announced that Scarlett, her 28-year-old stepmother, would be planning her sweet 16 party. Not me, not the woman who'd raised her alone for 12 years after her father decided his secretary was more interesting than his family. When I asked why, Madison rolled her eyes like I'd asked her to explain quantum physics to a toddler. The words still stung. Mom, you're just embarrassing. Scarlett gets fashion. She understands what's cool. She used to be a model, and she knows how to throw parties that aren't totally cringe. I'd spent the last 3 months saving every penny from my teaching salary to give Madison the party she dreamed of. I had Pinterest boards full of decorations, a guest list color-coded by dietary restrictions, and a playlist that took me weeks to curate. Apparently, my efforts were as outdated as my wardrobe, but it got worse. 2 days before the party, Madison informed me I wasn't even invited. Her exact words, "Scarlett thinks it would be better if you didn't come. You know, to avoid any drama. And honestly, Mom, you don't really fit in with my friends' parents. They're all successful and stylish, and you're just—" She paused, searching for the words that would cut deepest. "You're just a high school teacher who shops at Kohl's. Update. Getting messages asking if I confronted my ex about this. I tried calling him, but he sided with Scarlett completely, saying she was helping Madison become more sophisticated. The audacity was unbelievable. Anyone else think some parents prioritize being the fun parent over being responsible? The divorce had been brutal 3 years ago. David left me for Scarlett, his 25-year-old marketing assistant, claiming he needed someone who understood his ambitions. Translation, he wanted someone who looked good on his arm at charity galas and didn't question his increasingly frequent business trips to Miami. The settlement was modest. He was smart about hiding assets, and I was too exhausted to fight harder. Since then, Madison had been caught between two worlds. At my place, we had movie nights with microwave popcorn and homework help at our kitchen table. At David's, she had a personal shopper, spa days, and Instagram-worthy experiences that made my efforts look pathetic by comparison. Scarlett had positioned herself as the cool big sister Madison never had, complete with matching designer handbags and girls' trips to Beverly Hills. I'd watched my daughter slowly drift away, trading our Sunday morning pancakes for bottomless brunch at the Four Seasons with her stepmother. Madison started correcting my pronunciation of designer brands and rolling her eyes when I suggested Target for back-to-school shopping. The girl who used to defend me against playground bullies now seemed embarrassed by my existence. The Sweet 16 planning had been my last-ditch effort to reconnect. I'd researched trending decorations, learned TikTok dances that made my back ache, and even considered dipping into my emergency fund for a more expensive venue. But Scarlett swooped in with promises of a party at the Ritz-Carlton, professional, photographers, and a guest list that read like a social register. How could I compete with unlimited resources and the kind of effortless sophistication that comes from never having to check your bank balance before buying coffee? The party was scheduled for Saturday night. I spent the evening grading papers and pretending I wasn't devastated, occasionally checking Madison's Instagram stories to see glimpses of what I was missing. The photos showed exactly what I'd expected: crystal chandeliers, a champagne tower, and Madison in a designer dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. Scarlett had delivered on every promise, creating the kind of party that would be talked about for years. But something felt off in the later posts. The photos became blurrier, the smiles more forced. In one video, I could see kids who looked way too young holding drinks that definitely weren't soda. Madison's eyes were glassy, her words slurred as she thanked Scarlett for making her dreams come true. My teacher instincts kicked in. I'd seen enough students under the influence to recognize the signs. I tried calling Madison around 10 p.m., but it went straight to voicemail. David's phone did the same. Even Scarlett wasn't answering. The knot in my stomach grew tighter as I scrolled through more posts from other parents' kids who were apparently also at this party. 17-year-old boys doing shots, 15-year-old girls stumbling in their heels, parents commenting with fire emojis, completely oblivious to what was happening in those expensive hotel rooms. By midnight, the posts had stopped completely. Social media went dark in a way that made my skin crawl. I paced my small living room, torn between respecting Madison's wishes that I stay away and the growing certainty that something was terribly wrong. The last coherent post I'd seen was Madison holding a bottle of Grey Goose captioned, "Scarlett got us the good stuff," with heart eye emojis. When my phone rang at 2:47 a.m., I already had my keys in my hand. Update. Some of you are asking about the other parents. Turns out half of them had no idea their kids were drinking. Scarlett apparently told everyone it was a sophisticated party, but failed to mention she was providing alcohol to minors. The police are now involved, and several families are pressing charges. The hospital scene was chaos. Ambulances were still arriving with teenagers from the party, and the emergency room looked like a disaster zone. Madison was one of 6 kids, admitted with alcohol poisoning, and 3 others had been found unconscious in hotel rooms. The police had shut down the party around 1 a.m. after hotel security called about noise complaints and discovered minors passed out in the hallways. David was nowhere to be found. Apparently, he and Scarlett had left for Cabo that morning, trusting her to supervise 16-year-olds with access to a full bar. When I finally reached him by phone, his first concern wasn't Madison's health, but potential damage to his reputation. Scarlett, meanwhile, had turned off her phone and was posting sunset photos from Mexico like nothing had happened. I spent the next 18 hours in that hospital chair, holding Madison's hand while she drifted in and out of consciousness. Her blood alcohol level had been dangerously high. The doctor said another hour without medical attention could have been fatal. As she slowly became more coherent, the full story emerged. Scarlett had not only provided alcohol, but had actively encouraged the kids to drink, telling them it was a European approach to celebration. She'd supplied vodka, champagne, and even party drugs that some of the older kids had brought. When things started getting out of control, instead of stopping the party or calling for help, Scarlett had simply disappeared, leaving dozens of intoxicated teenagers to fend for themselves. The legal fallout was swift. Child endangerment charges were filed against both David and Scarlett. 3 families hired attorneys. The hotel banned them permanently, and the story made local news with the headline, "Socialite Stepmother Abandons Teens After Party Turns Deadly." Madison's Sweet 16 had become a cautionary tale about privilege and neglect. Madison's recovery took weeks, but our relationship started healing the moment she opened her eyes in that hospital bed and saw me sitting there. Through tears, she apologized for choosing Instagram glamour over genuine love, for prioritizing appearances over the parent who'd never missed a school play or soccer game. The girl who'd called me embarrassing now seemed to understand the difference between being loved and being spoiled. The custody arrangement changed immediately. David's legal troubles and obvious negligence made my case for primary custody slam dunk simple. Madison moved back home full-time, trading her penthouse bedroom for our cramped apartment and seemingly grateful for the downgrade. She asked me to plan her makeup Sweet 16 celebration, a small gathering with close friends, homemade cake, and no alcohol in sight. Scarlett and David's relationship imploded under the legal pressure and negative publicity. Last I heard, she'd moved to Los Angeles to restart her modeling career, while he was dealing with lawsuits and attempting to rebuild his reputation. Madison rarely mentions either of them anymore, focusing instead on her grades and college applications. Update. Madison just got accepted to Northwestern with a partial scholarship. Turns out having a boring teacher mom who emphasized education over parties paid off. She thanked me in her graduation speech last week. Sometimes the embarrassing parent turns out to be the one who truly cares. Have any of you had to compete with a fun parent who forgot that parenting isn't supposed to be a popularity contest?